Vice Chair.
Deputy Max Andrews.
Thank you, and over to you.
Mark Cox, I'm Chief Exec, Channel Island Co-op.
Lee Madden, President of Jersey Chamber of Commerce.
And online?
I'm Mike Rutter, I'm the COO of Sandpiper.
I'm Andrew Holmes, I'm the Operations Director for Morrison's in the Channel Islands.
I'm Matt Heslop, I'm the Group Wholesale and Convenience Director for Morrison's.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I think we may be joined in a moment by Murray Norton of the Chamber of Commerce as well. So we'll bring him in as we can. But I'll,
Watching.
he's watching, that's fine. I think that's good. So let me just kick things off by putting this in context. So you'll be aware, I think more than as much as anybody else, that Jersey has recently undergone a change of ferry operator. And so whilst there's also been a lot of, I think, discussion and correspondence from certainly between constituents and states members with some observations and in some cases areas of concern about the new service, which has often been from a passenger point of view. We're also aware that there's been some disquiet, some of it's very public, of course, about the freight service and its operation in Jersey. And I think that's really what we're here to focus on today, to get your views from a business point of view, from retailers' point of view, about how that process has happened up to date and what the potential consequences have been and might be for you, but also for the Jersey consumer in the short and medium term. So with that in mind, I'm just going to ask the first question, and obviously anyone feel free to answer in whatever order you wish. Can you speak from a business point of view about observing the whole tender process, I think from start to finish and where Jersey's government got to? Do you have any comments about that process?
I'm happy to hand up the retailers.
We were involved in it.
No, I think that's one of the question areas which we have for you. So, I mean, we're happy to talk about that now, but tell us about, I suppose, the lack of involvement that you had in that process, whether you would have expected to have had more involvement and then maybe what the consequence of that non-involvement might be.
I mean, talking from a Morrison's perspective, we had zero involvement, including our kind of logistics manager that's based in the UK. He had zero involvement. We were involved in a few meetings that happened after the kind of agreement went through in reality, but you know, other than that, we had absolutely zero involvement from our perspective.
Is that something that's shared by all of you here?
Yes, yeah, I'd echo that.
I think as Chamber, we weren't involved in it whatsoever either. So we weren't really approached to give to go to our membership to get opinion or the understanding of what we proposed or how it's going to affect the retail sector. Hindsight's a great thing, though.
Is there anything that you would have, I mean, would you have wanted to be involved is the first question?
I think when you've got consequences, there's, you know, removing the volume rate card is one that is a potential issue that was never discussed. What are the consequences for retailers as a result of doing that? It's disappointing there was very little engagement, and equally when it was becoming clear that this wasn't going to be about one operator anymore, there was very little engagement from Jersey. On the other hand, Guernsey stood up a committee. We were invited to discuss that. What did that mean? What were the potential implications of that from a freight service provider? You know, that reduced service, those types of issues were all discussed. We were part of the Guernsey plan and looking at where that needed to be. So they were very good at engaging, whereas Jersey was a lot more silent.
And do you think Guernsey's decision, do you think they took your comments on board and businesses' comments on board when they made the final decision?
Yeah, I think, you know, when it's clear that they were going with Condor and what that meant for freight capacity, we were involved in what that looked like. So where they could, in terms of how that was handled at the port and the congestion, those types of issues were all taken into account. And equally, when at the early stage, we were clear with them that this would mean a reduced service. They weren't particularly aware of that the first time that they were discussing that. So, but came back very promptly with Condor around what could this possibly look like.
Can I just follow up on that, Mark? You clearly experienced a difference between Jersey and Guernsey's approach to this. At any point in those discussions, did you talk to Jersey about the way in which the process was unfolding in Guernsey? And were you listened to in that regard?
No, I dropped the Chief Minister an email along with Kirsten Morrell, just say I had some concerns around the way that this was going, and having attended that first Guernsey meeting, was really concerned that the islands were splitting and the consequences for us as retailers and the added complexity. I had a message where I'd missed the Chief Minister. He did try to contact me, but I had no other contact.
What stage in the process was this?
This was before the final decision was made, but as it became clear that this was going to become an issue.
Is that before Guernsey had announced that they were...
Before they'd announced, but they called us into a meeting to say that things weren't well and this was potentially a route that they were looking to go.
Can I also ask, what impact has it had that the Channel Islands have gone with separate ferry operators, especially for those businesses who are based both in Jersey and Guernsey?
I mean, from our perspective, from a Morrison's perspective, the resilience of DFDS has kind of been a big question for us, because, you know, the minute that there's been any kind of disruption, and when we talk about disruption, the Condor boats managed to get into Guernsey at that point. We had Challenge Seaways getting into Alderney. But when there became an issue for DFDS, they weren't able to get their boats into Jersey. And that recovery period just went on for more than a week to recover that position on more than one occasion now. So it doesn't give us any kind of confidence going into kind of worse weather at the minute, where Condor have got that experience of getting the boats into the island, that actually DFDS have got that kind of resilience to be able to do that.
Could I just ask you, Andrew, at what point were you able to raise the issue of the logistics with ministers and civil servants here?
Well, in reality, you know, through the Chamber of Commerce, we've obviously put our points forward like the rest of the members, but, you know, in terms of, you know, any of the ministers, we've had no real contact in regard to that.
I'll just add another point about the flexibility of the supply chain. In the past, it would be quite common for containers or trailers to be left in Guernsey in order to just bring them across from Guernsey to Jersey as a shorter leg. That never happens clearly anymore, and that creates another issue in recovery times post any bad weather. So there's quite a lot of issues that come out of splitting up into two different companies.
I think that the starting point is you have the cost and complexity of now managing two different operators. So whereas before you had a seamless piece and you could move the volume between the islands, but the current scenario is I can't ship stock between Jersey and Guernsey anymore. So we don't move local supply between Jersey and Guernsey as we used to. The cost of that has increased 40% because it's got to be moved back to the UK. So you've lost that inter-island connectivity, not just from a passenger point of view, but freight point of view as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Sorry. Can I just come back to the issue of the logistics and the supply chains? At what point, when you were involved in discussions with Jersey, that you talked about some of the issues and the problems associated with the logistics and the supply chains, or were the conversations just primarily on routes?
But predominantly on routes, albeit when we were made aware that the starting point for DFDS was to use the Arrow vessel, we flagged concerns around the resilience of that vessel because it doesn't operate in the same conditions. And that's borne out in terms of the latest statistics. I think we've had somewhere in the region of 10 cancellations into Jersey, whereas Guernsey's only had 2. And the Arrow can't cope in the unseasonal weather. Now, I know they have a replacement vessel online, but the immediate use of that vessel was concerning, and we flagged that.
And did you see? Sorry, Mike.
Arrow, sorry to interrupt. It's well known that the Arrow can't travel at the speed necessary to maintain the service. I think it's well known. It's been known for years. whenever it's been brought forward as an alternative service when something ours went into dry dock, it was common for the timetable to be broken across that week. It always happened, so it was inevitable it was going to happen again.
Yeah.
Can I ask, following on from that, are there any other problems that you collectively might have anticipated that you did call before the service started that have manifested, and that you could have pointed out to the Minister and to the department beforehand?
I think the other issue for us that we all suffer from is the inconsistency of the departure times out of Portsmouth. So that varies and can vary on a daily basis, much more than what Condor would have done previously.
Yeah.
What we rely on is consistency in that product arriving into the island to enable us to get labour schedules, the rest correct. You can have 3-4 hours difference depending on what time that vessel left the night before or during the day.
Okay, I'm just going to press you now on, given the issues that you've just talked about in terms of engagements prior to the award of the contract, since the contract has been awarded, what kind of engagement and consultation has been taking place?
Well, as Chamber, as soon as the contract was awarded, we spoke with ministers and officers, and we asked that the flat rate be put on hold for 12 months so we could look at the volume rate, see what's going to be, because we hadn't been consulted. So we asked for that. We were told it's a done deal and we've got to accept the flat rate. And whilst we went to bat for our retail sector and all our other sectors as well, it became evident that that was a non-starter, and it wasn't going to change. We lobbied government a lot before the tender was awarded to, well, not awarded, before the operation started in the 1st of April. And I have to say that we had some engagement, but we did feel a lot of time that the decision was made, and there wasn't a lot of going back on it.
Can I put to you what the Minister told us about the flat rate cards? So this is a public hearing as well. He said that we are shining a light on a very obscure and untransparent part of Jersey's economy. We are shining a light on it through a new system, and means that everyone will be able to have a much better understanding of where people are profiting, where there is excess profiting, and where there is not, they will be able to move to other competitors. And I know that businesses are already shifting their supply chains precisely because of the flat rate charge. What do you make of that statement?
I think hindsight's a great thing, isn't it? I think had the consultation taken place earlier in 2024, I think a lot of these things could be ironed out, discussed, and planned for. I'd hope going forward, if this is going to happen again, that this wouldn't happen again. So
I think you can have transparency with a volume rate card. It operates in the rest of the world quite successfully. It operates in Guernsey quite successfully. So I don't take the argument, albeit I do understand the concerns of having one significant logistics operator in Jersey, but that's a different issue. What we do have is we've pulled a lever to say we will have a flat rate card to increase competition when there is no space for competition. There is no space down at the harbour, that's clear. And there is nobody that is capable of holding and handling fresh food other than ferry speed. So we've pulled one lever, the other 9 are fully in the opposite direction. So there will be no movement. It won't increase competition in the short term whatsoever.
And if we look at the prices, I mean, it's one thing to have a flat rate, but if the flat rate that everyone's paying is more than they used to pay, that seems to me that it wouldn't help anyone. I mean, is that the kind of scenario we're in now, or are there, are the smaller potential importers able to get a better fee than they might have in the past? What's your experience?
Well, I think
the answer to that.
Sorry, Mike.
The people who have been who bring most product to the island are the food retailers. I mean, it's every day. All of us will bring multiple trailers every single day. And we benefited from volume discounts as a result of that. That's absolutely common business practice. It works in every single business across the world, not just in the freight business. So that's not an unusual practice. And, you're being rewarded for the amount of a business you put that way. and to then go to a flat rate that is higher than we are currently, were previously having to pay, that basically is rewarding people who have very low volume. That's, if you like, at the best, that's balancing that to a degree. We go up, others come down, perhaps. I can't comment about whether how many people have come down. It might be that we're all paying more, who knows. But the reality is that one single measure has created additional cost on food in Jersey that was unnecessary, because that way of operating, there's nothing wrong with having volume discounts. We all benefit from these in our lives. So I completely reject the idea that we need a flat rate to make a competitive market.
Can I? We've been told by the chief economist, Mike, that the cost of a basket of food is only really predicted to increase by 0.4%. What do you say about that?
I'd say the answer to that equation is multiples of 0.4%. It is for us. We've worked it out. It's much more. Now, some of the costs are still unclear because some of them still haven't been levied. As we understand it, there's still question marks about some of the port dues and harbour costs and how much they're going to be, whether they're in and whether they're out.
Okay.
So there are still costs to come, but it's definitely going to be more than 0.4. It already is more than 0.4.
And can we bring in Andrew as well from Morrison?
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we've seen between an 8 and 9% increase, and that's as we sit here today in terms of freight charges. We believe that the additional increase that's going to go in is going to add more on top of that, and we're estimating at the minute that we are looking at a 1.2% increase in what food prices potentially are going to be. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just not going to be able to defy gravity on some of this stuff. It's just impossible. It's got to be passed on, to the customer, or we're going to have to look at other cost-cutting exercises along the way. On top of, to go back to your previous point, all of the food retailers are operating on, very, very tight margins, which is completely different to many other retailers out there in terms of the non-food retailers or other industries that are bringing products in. So to add this cost in a flat rate type situation that we've got is just penalising food retailers.
Do you think this is being primarily driven by a desire for, as a punitive measure, perhaps, that the Minister and the Department have seen what they've identified, what they think is an anti-competitive practice, which we don't pass any comment on, and that they've identified a course of action that they think will bring about a certain consequence? Is that how you see it, or is there a different motivation that you can tell us about?
I don't really know what the motivation is, because we, in reality, with their biggest customers, and we should have been involved, from the start within the process, that we could help to help people understand exactly what issues we were facing, what other costs we were facing, and our job in reality is to try and keep prices of food at their lowest inflation. But in reality, with the cost of living, with minimum wage going in, it's becoming very, very difficult to be able to manage that.
I think from our point of view, we're partly trying to understand the motivation. So we normally would see a minister in a department which is very pro-free market and doesn't like state intervention ordinarily unless it's very justified. But we've got this example of a particular course of action which does intervene, and it tells a private company what they're allowed to charge, and they're not allowed to offer discounts. They don't do that on the passenger side. They're allowed to offer discounts to passengers, etc. So if you can think of any legitimate reason why the minister might be doing that, would be, I suppose, answers on a postcard is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think the other piece here is
It's never explained to us. We've never had it explained to us. We don't know the reasoning for it. It came out as an end product. So we don't know what those driving forces are, or I don't.
Okay. Also, I mean, what impact is this having, say, for the smaller businesses and those businesses, for instance, who've got a bit more scale, such as, say, with some of the supermarkets?
I think some of our membership have gone to competition in the freight sector, and they are trying to make a go of it. Our smaller membership are affected too. The supply chain. I can't give you the detail about it because I don't know. And if my chair at retail was here, he could probably give you more understanding. So I think there is an impact, the level of which I can't really say here.
Yeah. Max, are you happy to carry on with the next lot of questioning?
Yes. I guess for me, just in summary, I'd really like to gather what your views are on the decision for the Minister for Sustainable Development to select DFDS and what that really means now for the island's businesses.
I think as Chamber of Commerce, we understand that we need long-term resilience of a supplier, and the promise of long-term resilience and free investment is something that we welcome. I think we are always going to go back to the fact that had we been consulted, had we been engaged in this at an earlier time, I think the situation could be a lot different. I don't see there is. DFDS are here for 19 and a half years now, and I think we need to work with them to get the best for us. But at the end of the day, the retail sector are a lifeline service to the island, and they need to the government and DFDS need to listen to the concerns and work with them to alleviate the concerns to the betterment of their business and for the betterment of the island.
And obviously it's quite a long contract, 20 years. So have you been speaking to some of your fellow members at the Chamber of Commerce who might be making adjustments within their businesses due to the increased costs?
I think it's hard to place the fault at DFDS, and I have every sympathy for them in terms of standing up in the short period of time that they have, and there was bound to be teething problems. I think, as Lee's highlighted, the disappointing piece is the lack of engagement, and we could have thrashed out some of these issues had there been further more engagement. The transparency call around volume rate card could have been dealt with and could have been upfront. That caught us by surprise at the end of those discussions. But I think there needs to be investment in vessels. I get the length of the contract to enable that. What we suffer from now is we are small islands, both Jersey and Guernsey. You need economies of scale. Mm-hmm. We are always going to have high freight prices given the limited economies of scale and the limited operators that can service us. You're far better to drive those economies of scale by working together as islands. And it's disappointing that didn't happen.
I mean, what feedback has been received from those who are directly importing compared to those who are maybe a bit further down the supply chain in terms of when we're looking at resilience and cost?
I find it difficult to answer that with being 4.5 months in the seat and not having my chair on the retail sector here. There will be an impact, and my assumption is that the small supply chain are feeling about too, but they're told that they've got the option of, and they are doing, of putting their own pallets and their own freight on vessels and bringing it in and using the flat rate, potentially to their advantage. I can't give you any figures or data on that to say that's actually the case, because in the moment we've got the main big suppliers of the retail to the islands.
Yeah, and also the panel has obviously been in negotiations with the Minister for Sustainable Development about the publication of the concession agreement. And I just want to know how important is the publication of such an agreement to your members?
I think it's very important. We've been pushing for this now for months, many months, and we've sat in meetings with the Minister and his officers when they agreed they were going to release a redacted copy of it. To understand what is in the black and white, is in the detail, is important for the retailers, so they can adjust their business, have an understanding of why what's happening is actually happened or has happened.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I think it's surprising that that hasn't been dealt with, and up front, given the importance of this contract, that wasn't viewed as an imperative coming out. You've just got to look at the Isle of Man. They have a robust sea service agreement. It's published. It's available online. The details there. You fully understand what's happening. We don't have that in the islands. That's disappointing.
So you welcome the publishing of the concession
Absolutely.
agreement, and it's what the panel's pushed for. And we understand it will be hopefully published this month in a redacted form. Can I turn? First of all, can I just ask? We've got some new attendees, I think, that maybe weren't here at the beginning. So Can I just ask, if that's the case, can you just introduce yourselves for the record?
Yeah, Kieran Poole, and I'm Operations Director for Alliance Supermarkets on Jersey.
Thank you, Kieran. Welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
My name is Alan Parkus, and I am the Logistics Manager for Morrison's.
Thank you. Welcome. Do feel free to jump in on any of the questions. I think we've been muddling through quite well so far, given the number of you, and we appreciate having you all here again this morning, just to reiterate that. Could we turn to maybe turn to some of the tangible problems that you've experienced? We've been made aware of a number of issues, one of which was the fact that businesses were being charged retrospectively for harbour dues, so that those are prices and billing that wasn't anticipated. Can you talk us through whether that's affected you and what you make of that, and how it compared with perhaps the way you might have been billed, if it's relevant to you, with the old operator?
I think that'd be good from the retailer.
Yeah. Mike's coming.
So anyone feel free to jump in if it's relevant. Mike, perhaps?
Well, port dues, as I understand it, used to be part of the charge. I think that that once we got started and we had new rates, that they weren't included. I can't comment on how that situation came about. It was certainly a surprise to us, and those are now being levied. I understand that there's a further question about other harbour charges and whether they are included in the current update to port dues or not. So there is still some uncertainty about whether we're seeing the full charge or whether there's actually a further charge to come.
Is it difficult
All
to
of
plan?
those used to be included in the rate, and therefore we would have expected, because of course we wouldn't have expected anything else, that was already included in the charges. So hence that's why I was surprised when it was confirmed that they weren't included.
Has that uncertainty provided a problem? I mean, businesses normally, I think, like certainty, and they like to be able to plan in advance. Has that been an issue?
Yes, I mean any charge that comes after the event and you haven't budgeted for it is a problem. Yes, because we look at our numbers every single week, and we're all over those numbers, and for a charge to come out and backdated, it's unprecedented. I can't think of another time it's ever happened at that level.
Can I just ask on that, Mike? Did you assume that those, given that you were all over your figures, did you assume that those charges were included in the price that you were going to have to pay?
In the absence of any information to say otherwise, yes, because they were previously included.
Yes. Okay.
There's two aspects to those charges, and I think just to provide some clarity to it. So one is the weight-based harbour dues that were separate to the freight charges you would get, but were always invoiced alongside. It's those that have come up and have been retrospectively applied. And we were aware that something was amiss on those, and we'd accrued up, so not an issue. There is a separate part that is the freight facility charges, which is the piece that's now in dispute. They were always included in the freight charges from the operator. We're now told that they weren't and not included, and this is the piece that there is a further charge, we believe, to come. Now, we understand that the Chief Minister and DFDS are in consultation on those charges, but as Mike says, we have no visibility of what they are and will lead to further increases. So we've already seen significant increases in freight pricing. Now to find an area that was missed and is due to come is concerning.
Can you tell us what these freight facility charges are supposed to be?
They're levied by the ports, so it's a port charge. So in effect, in the hands of government in terms of what those charges are.
Do you see that as some kind of stealth tax that you weren't aware of at the beginning?
I think if they were included in the freight rate previously, why weren't they included now? So that's a concern. Don't know whether it's a stealth charge or not. You'd expect to contribute towards port usage charges. That's normal. But to find that they've been missed is a concern. And then to seek to implement those at a time when, as Mike says, nobody's budgeted for those. We all assumed quite rightly that they would have been included as it would have done previously.
Again, I think this comes down to communication. I think DFDS admit this, that their communication hasn't been as good as it can be. They're a new operator coming into a new market, and their comms has been poor. these sort of things that they could have done a lot better, and I believe they are improving that to the sector. The plus charges, the freight charges, the Portsmouth and the Jersey ones have a massive impact on the retail sector. Many millions of pounds across all the stores. My understanding was the previous operator included them in the rate, and looking at the financial resilience, which again appears to be public record of the previous operator, were they passing on those charges when maybe that they shouldn't have been. Time could tell, but at the moment it's a massive impact on the retail sector. We understand that the charge is going. Somebody's going to have to take the hit on this.
Yeah.
There is going to be somebody who's going to take the hit. I do think it's going to be really unfair that the
What do you
retail
mean by
sector's
that?
take
Do
it.
you mean businesses are going to take a financial hit?
Well, the retailers are going to have to pay it.
Yeah, so they're going to pass on the costs.
And they're going to pass it on to the end user. I think, as Andrew has mentioned, he's already given an indication that 0.4 is incorrect, and the factual number is, I believe he said 1.4, 1.5. Andrew, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, we've estimated it's, in terms of the additional cost on kind of food retail prices, we're looking at potentially, another 1.2% on top of inflation.
Yeah, you presumably can't put that on afterwards. You can't say this is the price, but we're going to charge you an extra 1.2, 1.5 for freight charges. That would be strange at the least, I think. Yeah.
But it's either that or we have to find it in the cost somewhere else.
Yeah.
Within the business, which we already know we're going to be facing another increase in terms of minimum wage in April. That's going to be another cost on top that we've got to already kind of account for now to manage. I mean, one of the other, just go back to the other bigger issue that we weren't told about it. We're already in a budgeting process. Lots of companies obviously have a very different start to the year. Our year starts on the 1st of November. None of these costs are in our budgets whatsoever. We've not accounted for them. We've not had time to account for them. And now we're going to have to start to kind of look for, another kind of potentially £300,000 to £400,000 that we're going to have to find, within the budget somewhere to deliver, the baseline profit for the business. So it's increasingly difficult when that happens. It's increasingly difficult anyway to be able to manage those kind of headwinds at the minute. But then when we're already finding out about them retrospectively, as we have done, it's going to be a very challenging kind of situation to be able to find that money.
Thank you. Can I just bring in some of the other retailers if they wish to contribute? So Matt, Kieran, Alan, do any of those comments ring true with you? Are there any additional comments from your business models?
I mean, just to add this, so we are the smallest retailer set around the table here. So what we've seen so far is between January and June 2025, we've seen a freight increase of 6.1%, and what Andrew just mentioned there, that 1.2%, that is what we're calculating at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think it'd be interesting to think about the things like the fairground, Jersey Live. I believe they get a concession rate, and when they've come to us and taken a look at that as well. So I think DFDS have some flexibility, and they will be flexible. I think and we all agree, for an operator to come in and set up service so quickly, it's difficult. Communication has been bad, and I think that's something that we all completely agree with. Had everybody known about this, they could have planned it for the future. There was the ability to look at this and get into dialogue.
It seems communication and transparency are quite a strong theme here. What sort of things that you believe could have been improved, for example, around things like scheduling and service disruptions?
I think in involvement at those stages, we were provided schedules well after the fact, once this had been concluded. And, we fed back on the first set. There was some changes made, to be fair to DFDS, but they're still not ideal. And it's the same with that level of disruption That is a challenge given the vessels that they're currently operating. And each time that happens, that incurs additional costs to every one of our businesses, whether that be increased waste as a result of food not arriving on time, or overtime for colleagues to be able to handle that product.
Can I ask a specific question about frozen goods? Has there been any issue that you're aware of in the importation of frozen goods? And as far as maybe Lee's concerned, I know most of you will be concerned about importing, but in terms of any businesses that might export in Jersey, are you aware of any issues about problems with businesses exporting products?
I don't think I can give you a valid opinion. It could be public. I have an opinion about it, but I can't put anything to it at the moment without having given you. So okay. I'll pass them out because I can't give you the actual detail. We do know that we've had some issues in France.
When I say frozen, I also mean refrigerated goods.
Yeah,
really.
Received and things like that. But unfortunately, I can't give you comment because I don't know enough about it.
It's fine. Thank you. No, I take it on. It's probably not an issue immediately then.
I think we've had disruption where, and again, some of that's teething problems where trailers have been left behind in the UK, and some of that's been fresh food. That's happened on successive days. We had an issue in France where we've had Carrefour products sitting at a dock for 2 weeks where it's not been picked up. And I know that, local bakery here that imports flour from France was in exactly the same position as we were, that they didn't get into France and didn't pick that product up. So there's been challenges as the DFDS have tried to get used to dealing with the islands.
Yes. Something I can add to that, though, certainly from the French point of view, is out of the span of our control, DFDS and Jersey, is the actions of the French and how they're treating some of the things that's going into France or coming from France. So there is an attitude of perceived disruption is being made at the port coming from France.
Thank you.
Okay.
And have those resulted in a financial loss for any of you? Have you had to write off stock? Or
I know one of the members has, yes.
Yeah,
product just to pick up on the frozen issue, and I'm sure that Kieran wants to come in here because he's got probably the biggest component of frozen now in terms of being a frozen food retailer. All of that product just gets left behind. We've already got a fairly big component of frozen in our stores. Kieran, in terms of Alliance, will have a bigger component. All of that product gets left behind. And obviously, it's the recovery and the resilience of that supplier that helps us then get back on track. We understand why, but obviously in recent kind of weeks, and like I said, I'll let Kieran come in here in a minute, it's been significantly longer than what we've ever experienced before.
And you're talking about importing from the UK, so this is...
Yes. Yeah. And that has in terms of, obviously lost sales.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Andrew's just said there. As the Iceland franchise partner on the islands now, it is extremely challenging when it comes to frozen for us. So any kind of disruption week that we're seeing, it could be as much as 4 or 5 days before we receive our frozen delivery. And at that point in time, there was already additional frozen deliveries to come into the stores, so it just compounds, and it is extremely challenging as store operations.
Yeah. Can I just ask Matt, sorry, I'm going to jump back to something quickly just so I don't forget it. Has the flat rate actually benefited any of you? So have any of you been able to go to import your own things more competitively or use a different operator? No, that's not the case at the moment. No, all right. Thank you. Sorry to jump back to that, but it's trying to cover all bases.
I suppose just to follow on from that, do you foresee a time when it will be an advantage to you as retailers to have a flat rate card?
No.
And I guess you're more interested in the price, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're getting discounts or not. You just need to have the best price possible.
Yeah, the most efficient price possible. Yeah.
But then the best reliable service as well. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Shall we move on to pricing?
Yeah, please. Are you happy?
Yeah. So, gentlemen, I'm just going to talk about pricing, if that's okay. We've already talked about generally how the flat rate card has affected businesses, but could you tell us, in your opinion, do the current freight charges adequately reflect market conditions, or have costs become so disproportionate in that market
I think the point we made before, where there is a missing element or we don't know what it is, and it's hard to say where those costs are going to finish. But it is a concern for a small island that is so reliant on freight coming in that we are just seeing upward increases every year. That will become unsustainable at some stage. And I think for me, when we own such a strategic asset as the ports, how we can join that up to ensure that we do have resilient freight at the right price or even subsidised, because the biggest impact on cost of living here is one of the biggest impacts, the cost of getting goods to the island for every sector, not just food retail. So anything that can be done to offset cost or manage that cost more effectively has got to help everybody.
And do you see a difference between the Guernsey position?
Guernsey freight charges are lower than Jersey currently.
Okay.
Can I just explore? Do we know why that they might be lower? It's difficult to compare apples with pears, I suppose. But is there?
We would still benefit from a volume rate card in Guernsey that we don't in Jersey. But outside of that, I don't know the comparison around port user charges Jersey, Guernsey. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think also the difficulty for retailers, and this is coming to chamber, is the fact that the Pan operation, the Pan Island operations are having to completely change their systems and the pricing and the whole structure of how they get their goods into it. So it's double the amount of work that an operator has had to do effectively.
Just quickly, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
Karen, the minister has said that one of the benefits of not just the flat rate card, but that he's also limited the amount by which they can increase prices year on year to RPI. Is that something which you welcome? Was that something you believe will actually happen?
Time will tell, I guess. But yeah, it would absolutely be welcomed.
It would be welcomed. So we have seen historically other users coming in with double figure price increases as well historically. So if that stops that being able to happen, I'm sure. Yeah.
I suppose you'd be interested to know when the agreement is published, there may be caveats under which they can increase prices beyond RPI if there were certain economic circumstances. So I think...
So certainly as Chamber, when we get redacted documentation, we'll sit down with our subcommittee of retail and go through it. I'm sure there'll be questions that come from that.
Is there a sense in which they may have asked for a higher freight charge base rate to be introduced, mindful of the fact they can't introduce it in future? So is that something which you think may be in play here?
Difficult to tell.
Difficult to tell. So I suppose, we wait for the publication of the document. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you about whether or not you've noticed any sort of impact on the availability of goods or your ability to plan seasonal stock as a result of the contract.
I think it goes back to the issue around disruption. In reality, I mean, if there's no disruption and DFDS are delivering as they meant to, then our planning is exceptional. But if DFDS, as has been seen in recent weeks, can't deliver against that, they're not as resilient as what we were expecting them to be. They're not as resilient as Condor. Then we're going to have multiple impacts as we go into kind of peak trading kind of moments. And we still got this issue, and I know it's generally only ourselves because of volume, although I'm not discounting the co-op but alliance around kind of frozen food and how we manage that, based on the fact that it's an island that's constantly got disruption. You'd be expecting that there was some level of resilience around making sure that we can offer customers frozen food on these islands.
And what confidence do you have, Andrew, that position can be turned around so that the resilience is improved?
Well, until we've got kind of visibility around the vessels that they're using, etc., then not very much based on the experience that we've had just recently.
Does everybody share that view?
As we mentioned, whilst they're currently using the Arrow, then we would be concerned as we come into the poorer weather with that vessel. It can't operate in the same conditions.
Okay. Kieran, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what's just been mentioned there. We have experienced some serious disruption when it comes to our frozen chamber. It's been extremely challenging for our stores.
Can I ask about warehousing? So I think the Minister and Ports of Jersey are talking about building warehousing at ports. Is that something that you would welcome or that you believe is necessary? Or have you got any thoughts about what the consequences of that might be?
I think it totally depends on what the costs associated with that, what that would look like for us. And what we are doing to mitigate some of this at the moment is bringing in far more stock than we would like to do so, which is clearly affecting us from a cost perspective.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think additional resilience at the docks is welcomed. And I think if you look at the conditions that Ferry Speed operate out of, even down at the docks themselves over multiple sites, that's inefficient in itself. So a properly planned distribution logistics site at the docks would be welcomed. And if that enables further competition in the logistics market, then that would be great. As a food retailer, we wouldn't put warehousing back on the island.
As the harbour plan is coming into effect and the work we're doing, I think we should encourage the harbours and planning to really work this to get that through, get the harbour plan done, because that will add resilience, it will add extra warehousing and potentially competition as well. So I think the importance of pushing that through as quickly as possible should not be diminished.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Anything else?
Just maybe one thing, and this is to do with inter-island issues. Obviously, it's been mentioned in the media quite a few times, with some businesses obviously being affected. And I'd just like to know how that has really impacted the main supermarkets in the island.
For us, we'd be constantly, I wouldn't say constantly, but we have the ability to move stock between islands and balance off any overstocks or issues that we might have, within our operations. That's obviously now stopped. We also, through moving stock to Guernsey, we had a route into Alderney where we've got shops as well. That's not possible either now. So, the major island where we've got most of our stores, most of our sales, and most of our stock, in reality, we've lost the opportunity of being able to move that stock around, balance that stock around, be able to help and support the other islands that we've got.
And can I ask, is this a similar issue as well for the other members who are here today?
Yeah, we've also been experiencing challenges just on that in itself. I mean, just to give you one example, we had a delivery that was due into Jersey last week for whatever reason, not through the fault of DFDS, but it did arrive in Guernsey, and that's now sat there for a week before it can be sent back over to the correct island.
Okay, Monty.
Yeah, thank you. It seems so close, but yet so far, I think, our relations with Guernsey at the moment. We're coming towards the end of our allotted time, so if we do go over, I'm aware that some of you might have to leave immediately at 12, so that's not a problem, and do come in before if you've got anything to add. I think there's two areas that I'd like to ask about. One, I suppose we'll get onto is about the lessons that maybe government can learn from this whole process. So one question that we've had put to us is, I suppose, someone suggested, I won't mention any names, that there needs to be a public inquiry into the whole tender process and what happened there. It's not necessarily something we've thought about up until now, but is that something, if not that, are there lessons that you think can be learnt about this process? And more generally, I think, what's the message that this whole tender process in the Jersey context maybe says to the business community?
I think if it's something that's going to add, from what I've read, possibly £60 million to the kind of cost somewhere over that period of time, then I think there's got to be an inquiry into it somewhere. I don't think that any of us, that have made a mistake of that kind of magnitude would be expecting not to be, there'd be some level of investigation somewhere to get to the truth.
So do you think that this is a clear cut? Is this a mistake that the government's made in the whole process? So you'd welcome some accountability?
Somebody has, yeah, absolutely. Somebody has made a mistake somewhere, because clearly we published a number that was a rate that we believed 100% to be the rate, and now there are plus charges that have been included in that which weren't even talked about. So yes, I do believe that ultimately the person that was managing that tender, which is the government, is at fault here.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
For me, lessons need to be learned, and I think the procurement process, absolutely. When you've got a contract of this magnitude with 2 islands involved, I get the challenges in trying to get to a joint decision, but that's possibly where, in hindsight, they should have used somebody in the middle to negotiate that contract and had a binding agreement that this was going to be outsourced by proper procurement specialists focused in this area, and I think we'd have had a different outcome had that been the case. Public inquiries for me take time, take a lot of money. I'm not sure it's going to change anything. So,
I think the public inquiry, if you're going to consider public inquiry, needs to know what it's going to achieve, what it's for, and what it's going to cost, and the timeframes. I think what Scrutiny is doing here is a form of that inquiry anyway. So the information that you're going to get out is going to be a similar sort of thing to a public inquiry that could take a lot of time and cost a lot of money with the same results. Let's not waste any more taxpayers' money effectively. Mistakes have been made. Nobody's perfect. What's happened has happened, and I think now we need to focus on the future and how we're going to be more resilient to make sure that this can't happen again. If we're going to do this, if this is going to happen again, I think as Chamber we'd be really pushing to get a independent reporting officer or line who sits away from the islands and then can give independent advice and speak to everybody and say this is how I think it should go, and it's not a Jersey voice or a Guernsey voice. It's a voice of reason, and I think that's what we need to do in the future and make sure it doesn't happen again.
So I think we're mindful of the fact that there's a 20-year contract on the table and we're at year 1. And it's important to get this right, I think, and learn lessons. So I suppose if not a public inquiry, would you support a formal review of the economic and commercial impact of the ferry contract? And would that be something which you would be happy to input into? If
I certainly would. I mean, I certainly think there needs to be a bit of, I know this is a scrutiny meeting, but there needs to be a much more detailed review of how we've got to this point. Yeah. And if anything that allows us to do that and brings a lot of the processes and the thinking behind it to light, then I think that has to happen.
Thank you. First of all, any questions from my colleagues? The last thing I wanted to say is that we've had the Minister in on a number of occasions to answer questions in this area. We weren't part of the original tender process, so we've only been reacting really to what we've been given since. We're very pleased to have had you in, and lots of members of the public have contacted us as well, not just about freight, but about passenger services. And we have invited DFDS to a public hearing, which we hope they will accept that offer as well. Are there any questions which you would feel valuable for us as a panel to put to DFDS from a business point of view? Maybe that you haven't done yet, or that you think would be valuable for us to ask?
I mean, I'm just obviously asking us, within myself, but I suppose what we want is probably a conclusion or some kind of action from them, whether it's, are they open to returning to a volume adjusted rate card? Yeah. Are they open to removing the additional charges? Would be my questions, because they're the things that we're here for in reality.
And I think that's probably a question which we need to direct to the Minister as well, because I think that's where the pressure is coming from. From what we understand, it's the FDS didn't ask for this, and nor did anyone else, it seems.
So speaking as DFDS, a member of Chamber of Commerce, they were told to do the flat rate. They were happy to discuss, maintain the volume base.
Yeah. So thank you. No, but we will address that issue with them. Also about the impact it has on their business. I think dictating to any business what they can and can't do, unless there's a good reason for it, I think needs justification.
Can I just ask members, are you concerned about the resilience issue more now than you were before the contract was awarded? And if so, could you just give us an indication of how and in what way that could be improved over the next 6 months?
I think if you looked at how Condor operated between the two islands, with the vessels that they had at their disposal, if there was a problem, then there was greater resilience because they had more vessels on the routes. You don't get that, and both Guernsey and Jersey will suffer from this because you've got fewer vessels operating. I think the key concern for us at the moment is the vessel they're currently using. How long will that be used, and when will it be replaced? Because as we talked about, the Arrow isn't sufficient.
And sorry, one more question. How important is a regular and reliable inter-island service for you guys?
I think for us as a pan-island operator, we were moving local produce between the two islands. So that was helpful to some of our local growers and producers where they could get additional volume by selling product into Guernsey or vice versa. That is almost ground to a halt. It's not possible to do in the current climate.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further questions? No. And gentlemen, have you got any further points for us? If you think of anything after the meeting, because that always happens to me, do feel free to drop us a line.
I think it's important. I think it's really, really important that it's what's coming. We can deal with what's past, but make sure that the communication is clear, the schedules are clear. When things are left, fix them quickly. And I think DFDS are getting better. They are good at that, and they are here for 20 years. So it's how we all work together. But please, the ask would be to have firm communications to our members in the retail sector, so they know what's coming well ahead, so they can plan and deal with it.
Thank you.
Comms and transparency.
Thank you. Well, I'm happy to bring this session to a close. So can I just say thank you again for all attending. We appreciate your time. We know you're busy, and we hope that this will be really feed into our any future review that we're going to conduct. Thank you.
Thank you.